All right, is this microphone working? Testing. Are we getting anything through here? Cool. All right. Looks like we are live and things are working. All right, so that all looks good. Sweet. So gonna try the double camera setup today with the push, and see if that works. See how that affects my CPU and just general quality of life. I'm always trying to like look for ways to make the stream better and up the production value and make life better for everybody involved. But I'm a little worried that my computer will not be able to handle it. So if it ends up not working, then we'll just deal with it and figure it out from there. So welcome to the stream. This is going to be another just Tuesday hangout and just talk about music production with Ableton Live. I got some things I want to talk about, and when it comes to like sample processing and sample flipping and things like that, particularly because we have the sample pack challenge for this month that I honestly haven't had a lot of time to work on, and I'm going to probably work on it now during the stream. But if anybody is out there and has any questions about making music with Ableton Live or just wants to just chat, feel free to put it in the chat thing. That's where the chat goes. Cool. So I'm gonna get started, and I'm gonna try to keep an eye on my CPU and all that jazz, and my microphone volume. That all looks pretty good. Cool. So these are all of the samples that I made for the sample pack for this month. The only thing is I just put the drum samples into the drum rack, and then everything else is just kind of put in the session view. And I'm just going to try tweaking it and playing around with it. I did this a little bit in a previous stream, but then I made a bunch of changes to the sample pack. And so this is with the updated samples, and so I'm going to kind of restart from scratch. So here we just got our drum sounds. Got some weird ones. And then just got some like more normal sounding ones. These are all made with my modular synthesizer, so I'm into that. All right, so let's start taking these drums and start to dialing them in a little bit. So there's 4 drums, kick drums here. I like that one a lot. It's a nice kind of like punchy sounding kick drum. And I like this one, it's more of kind of like weird distorted one. So I'm gonna put the 2 of these together by just clicking on one, holding down the command key, and dragging it on top of the other one. That puts both of them inside of a rack. And once they're both in a rack, I can hit one button. It plays both of them at the same time, which is great. However, they both need a little tweaking. They're both not perfect the way they are, as samples generally are. So I'm gonna focus on these one at a time, and we'll start with this guy. So I like what this guy is doing, but I don't know if I need quite as much of a tail on it, which is something probably both of these samples needed a little bit less tail. So I'm gonna take my end, move my end about here, and then just turn the fade out up, and then start playing around with it. Something like that. And that way I'm able to like maintain the volume of what I'm hearing right here, but I don't need all of this other stuff because this one I'm going to use more as kind of like the tail one. So that's going to be my punchy one. And then we'll go to the other one. So this one's got some really cool stuff going on, but it's a bit too long and a bit too much. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Maybe something like that. And I might also filter this one a little bit. It's a little, I like the kind of like beefy griminess of it, but it's a little bit too much. So we got a built-in filter in here, so we can maybe dial down some of the high end. Why is this one not playing anymore? What did I do? Why is the filter getting rid of everything? What's going on here? Is this like a weird bug or something? That works fine there. I should be hearing everything there. Weird. All right. Well, in that case, we will just have to use the auto filter. And this is important when it comes to working with Rex. If you put it right here, it's only going to be on just this one drum sound. If I put it right here, it's going to be on both of my kick drums. And if I put it out here, it's going to be on the entire drum rack. So in this situation, I want to put it right here. So it only applies to this particular kick. And this is more what I'm looking for. It should have worked in here for some reason. All right, so maybe something like that. That way I maintain, again, a lot of that kind of like weird mid-rangey gritty part, but not everything. And that's good enough for right now, I think. Let's put a saturator in here too. So saturator, in this case, I want it to be on both of my kick drums, so I'm gonna put it right here, and that way both of them get run through that. And saturator is just a great way just to like beef up anything, like literally anything. If you need something to sound like a little more full, a little more rich, a little more kind of just like in your face, saturator is a great effect. We go in here, I really like the soft sine or cyanide fold. Those both sound really similar. If I wanted to make this more distorted, I'd probably go medium curve. It's already a little bit distorted, so I think soft sine or cyanide fold will both work really well. And we're going to take the drive, turn this up a bit, and that definitely beefs it up. So that's going to be our kind of starting point for our kick. We'll probably come back and dial it in more, but that at least gets me something that like feels nice, kind of like rich and full, and gets the job done. So let's check out our snares, see what we got. Sounds kind of nice. Those two are pretty similar. This one has like a nice little impact to it. So maybe I want to combine this one and that one. And so once again, I'm going to hold down the command key, click and drag from one onto the other. Now I have two snares here, and we can start, again, dialing them in one at a time, or both at the same time. I don't think I'm not going to do a lot of stuff in simpler in here quite yet, but I do want to toss some reverb on here. I'm going to feel real quick and lazy and just use the regular reverb, just because I know kind of the settings on here. But if I really wanted to dial this in and spend some more time with it, I'd probably use hybrid reverb or convolution. But something like that, and maybe a little bit of like blue compressor or regular compressor, either one works. Get a little gain reduction there, turn the makeup gain, give it a little bit of attack, put it 10, nothing else. I feel like the tail on this one I could use a little bit less of. Not a lot less of, but it's got kind of that noisy tail. Maybe a little bit less reverb here. What is causing that? And then a lot more volume coming out of the snare just because our kick is like super huge. So it's like, we'll try something like that. And then maybe a little bit less volume coming out of the kick, maybe a little bit less coming out of the saturator over here, just so they're not like super crazy different volumes. So that'll work. I'm not quite sure what I'm going for yet, but we're gonna try it out. So we'll try something like that and see where that gets us. It's a little fast compared to what I normally do, but could work. I feel like there's one too many kicks. Let's try this one. Get rid of that one. Oh, that's closer. That's closer to what I want, I think. That's, I think, a little more along the lines of what I want. Let's turn the tempo down a little bit. And this one needs to be there, I think. No. That needs to be there. Yeah, my timing is a tiny bit off, but that's mostly what I want. The timing of this one. Yeah, we'll do that. Cool. That's close enough, I think, for now. And then let's play through some hats. Some of these are kind of weird. This is like a little bit more of like an abstract kind of hat. That'll work pretty well, I think. Let's see if we want to tweak this at all. I think I'm honestly pretty fine with that. Maybe I want to like tighten it up a little bit. Yeah, like that a little better. And then we can just start, use my mouse here, and we're gonna start just plugging in some hats. Do I want to go for 16th notes? Sure, we'll start with 16 notes. So just a little Command D to duplicate it all around, and then we're going to select all these guys. We are going to take the random velocity control, and we're going to turn it down to like, I don't know, 15, and we're going to turn the velocity way down here. And I'm just going to hit randomize a bunch of times. And that gets me a little bit nicer sounding hi-hats than just kind of like straight up hi-hats. Let's turn the tempo down a little bit more. It's like, I don't know, some weird industrial hip-hop beat or something. And maybe a little bit less volume on the hats too, just because it's... What's up, Kevin? How's it going? How are you doing on this lovely day? All right, so there's our beat, at least a version of it for right now. And then we got a bunch of different ideas that we can start playing around with. Let's test out some of these bass lines. I know some of them sound crazy, but we'll see if there's any that kind of vibe with what we got going on. Turn the volume up. We may have to like really turn on this kick. It's like taking over everything. Let's make that a lot less noticeable. Well, I'm glad things are continuing to go, Kevin. Are you back at work yet, or are you still taking time off? this one could maybe work. So one of the first things I like to do when I'm doing like just dealing with kind of like pre-made loop stuff is just try chopping it in different ways using different warp modes, particularly the Beats warp mode, particularly the non-looping version of the Beats warp mode, and just to see what it sounds like if it becomes a little bit more kind of like percussive. That could be kind of useful. Other thing I like to do is just pitch it up and down octaves and see what happens. That could work. I doubt it's going to sound good down an octave, but it's not always worth checking, but sometimes it's worth checking. Almost worth it, I think. Oh man, it's a bummer you can't get back to work. I mean, unless you're wanted to get out of that job. But yeah, good luck in the job search. I'm sure it's like things are crazy out there right now. Are you taking some of your time off and working some music? All right, I'm not sure if that's the vibe I'm gonna go for. Let's also try the reverse. This is always good to check out as well. This first part's kind of cool. One of the other parts though. I don't know. I feel like there's some potential around here, but we'll put this one aside because I think that could be useful later on. Let's see if there's any other bass lines that I think will be relevant for this kind of thing. Yeah, Kevin, I hear you on the depression getting in the way of music writing. That's been a huge battle for me for many, many years. But yes, you just keep at it, man. I don't have any like magic advice for depression. But just know that you're not alone in being in that position and having that get in the way of music. But I feel you on that. I feel like this one has some potential too. Let's also let's play around this a little bit. So let's talk about a little bit how we can like take something like this. So say I like the kind of vibe and sound of this thing, but I'm not like super into the pattern. I just want to like make my own thing. The best way to do that is toss it into something like either simpler or sampler. So if we toss it in simpler, we have the whole thing here, and we can just take an individual note and just focus on that one note. Make sure we're putting it on the right track. So I got to think a little bit about how samplers work. So essentially, when I play the MIDI note C3, which I should still be in C major, yep. This is going to be the original pitch of that sample. But this note is probably not necessarily a C note. So what I need to do is figure out what note I'm playing by tossing a tuner on here. So it's an F sharp note. So I want to make it so that when I play an F sharp note, it actually plays an F sharp note, and not when I play the C note, it plays the F sharp note. And the way to do that is go into your controls and transpose it up or down, either direction. So if I'm playing my C note here, and it's playing the F sharp, I can just transpose this. Let's go down a couple. So I'm still playing the same MIDI note. So now I play C, and then it actually plays a C. I play a D, it actually plays D, etc. Oh, we got the computer doing its thing. Let me make sure this mic's still working, still sound okay. Okay, cool. Just making sure. It's like weird with the delay. Sometimes I can tell when my computer is struggling, and that's when the mic has issues. So I have to like wait for the latency of the stream to catch up just to do a little sound check like that. But yeah, man, I mean, depression and electronic music go hand in hand. Like everybody I know who makes electronic music has struggled with like really shitty times and years of having to like not feeling motivated and feeling really disconnected and wanting to quit and all the stuff that comes through that, especially after the year that everybody's just had. I feel like it was really weird at the start of COVID because a bunch of artists and people I know were like, okay, now I got all this time, I'm gonna like hunker down, I'm gonna work on a bunch of music and just crank out tracks. And some people like did it, and that's great. They're like just crushed making music and were like, cool, I got like 2 albums worth of stuff done in like a year. And so a lot of people were like, yeah, I'm gonna try doing that. And then the reality of the world that we're living in has really kind of set in, and then they like didn't make anything. Me being one of those people, I made a bunch of stuff, but I didn't like make an album or release or anything. There was just like too much going on. But yeah, don't ever feel like you're gonna derail me, because I'm part of my Tuesday streams is about being derailed. That's like the whole point. So feel free to, if you want to talk about it. That's what we're here for. So yeah, so what I was talking about before I got derailed in my own derailment was matching up the MIDI note you're playing with the sample that you're hearing. So in this case, I just picked a single note, and now I can play that however I want, and it'll actually be in key of the song that I want to be in, if I'm not mistaken, is F sharp minor. So let me make sure the push is on there, and I can't see with the lighting in here. There. Cool. Well, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it, and it's good to have you here. So I want to put this, because this is a really percussive sound, I want to put this in one-shot mode. And that way, so if it's in classic mode, if I just barely touch this note, I only get like a little piece of that sample. Turn that up, which sometimes can be kind of cool. But I want to put this in one-shot mode, and that way, if I just play it, it just plays the whole thing, which in this situation sounds a lot better. So if you're doing like little percussive things like that, do you want to like hold down the note, or do you want to be able to just like touch it barely, and then that'll work a lot better. So if I start playing this, Is this also on monophonic? Where is the polyphony? Oh, it's automatically in monophonic mode if it's in one-shot mode. Another reason to put it in one-shot mode. I'm getting a little bit of like weird distortion, so I'm going to give this like a tiny bit of fade out. Just a little bit, just so it doesn't get that like weird scratchy sound. And then also give it a tiny bit of fade in. And my computer is doing the thing again. It's hard to tell. I think I'm still good. All right, this should be cool. So now, it's just getting a little bit of distortion if I play like super low notes, but. And we could also turn warp on so that way it maintains its speed. So this is actually a topic that I was probably going to make a video for the channel on at some point, probably next week, just about kind of like sample flipping and how the kind of, in my opinion, the kind of like boring way to do it is just take the loop that you got, which is, you know, this loop right here, which is a cool loop. It works okay. But I want something that I can really play around with, that I really want to like turn into my own thing. And this is true for remixing or sample flipping or anything like that. Just, you know, samples you grab off of the internet, off Splice, wherever. Put it in a sampler, pick your favorite note, and then build an instrument out of it. And now I can actually start playing this and actually turn it into an instrument. And then I can like change the rhythm, change the pitch, do whatever I want to like make it work. You just need to figure out what note it is, transpose it so that it matches the key of the song you're in. You know, fade in, fade outs if you need them. I'm not sure if I'd like it better with warp turn on or off. I think that actually sounds pretty cool as opposed to makes them a little like too fast there. So I'm actually gonna keep warp turned off. If I was doing more pitching up, I would probably keep warp on, because here, if I play a higher note versus this, makes it like really kind of quick and choppy, which again, I might be going for that kind of thing. Something like that. Let me check one thing. I am not sure if I remember which key I made all of these in. Yeah, sharp minor. Cool. So we should be good here. So I'm just gonna try like playing a few different things and kind of seeing if I can get something that works a little bit with the drum beat I already have going on, and just kind of jam out and then use the capture just to grab something if I make something that I think sounds kind of interesting. All right, so I don't know if any of those are perfect, but there was a few, I think, interesting options in there that I think are worth checking out. So I'm gonna hit the capture button. And you can see there's like, here's all the different variations I made. I think somewhere in here, there might have been some cool ones. I might even like take one from one section and a different one from another section. So let's go ahead and start it over here and see if anything really kind of jumps out to me. So bar 11, I think, worked pretty well. So maybe bar 11 and bar 15. Or maybe I'll try like maybe bar 8 and bar 11. Yeah, let's try bar 8 and bar 11 maybe. There's like so many that are like almost quite what I want, but like not quite there. All right, maybe we'll do 7, 11, then 9, and then 8. Just to like make something that has like a lot of variation in it. So I could make it all in the same clip, but in this case I'm not going to. I'm just going to make a new clip and kind of copy and paste these around in here. So we'll start with bar 7. Grab this guy, copy it, paste it in here. And then we will grab bar 11. So this is like a fun way just to kind of like generate a bunch of ideas and then mix and match the ones you thought actually worked pretty well. I don't remember which numbers I said I was going to do. I read 7, 11, and then 8, and then don't want to do 9. Do 12. All right, so here is our baseline that we made. It's okay. I think we can work with this. I think we can make this happen. I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference, but just to make my life a little easier, I'm gonna legato these guys just to be able to see them a little better. And then just for funsies, let's try putting a pitch envelope on it and see what happens. No, let's try putting a little volume envelope on it. I don't mind that actually. I'm still getting a little clicking in there, and I'm not sure where that clicking is coming from. We might have to deal with that a little later, and I'm also going to quantize these guys a little bit. Cool. So that way we can like start with one bass sound. It's like a bass loop, extract an idea out of it that we like, and then kind of turn it into something totally different. It might not be perfect. It might not be the greatest bass line ever, but at least it's different than what we started, and we can make continue work on it and make it sound a little cooler. So let's try once again. We'll toss a little saturator on here. And let's play with the filter settings a little bit. I'm gonna go for like more like acidy kind of thing. Play with the envelope a little bit. Do something a little more like wompy. And just see what happens. Let's try it in classic mode. All right, quick reset. Did that work? Did that fix things? Testing, check 1, 2. Cool. All right, that's what happens every stream. At least at one point it does that. Let's try to minimize anything that's might add any CPU here. So it sounds pretty decent. We go to monophonic. Sounds better with actually being polyphonic. I'm just trying to get rid of it. Like there's like a weird little clicking sound that's in there that's been driving me a little crazy, but I think this helps get rid of it. And the question is, do I want to go more distorted with this? I got this kind of like distorted drum thing going already, and this is like, I think a little too housey for probably stylistically what I'm going for. So I'm gonna try adding some distortion. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it, but I might as well try it. Pedal is a great option if you want to go try out different distortion things and see how it goes. Still getting a little click in there. Stop clicking. That could work, and then let's play with the envelope a little more. All right, that's getting a little closer, I think, to what I want to go for, at least kind of like stylistically. And let's turn the dry wet a little bit. It's sounding okay. So let's put a pin on this for a little bit and come back to it, and let's see what we can do in terms of like some more kind of like melodic things. See if we can get something that sounds kind of interesting that we might want to layer in that, and that'll help give us some more context as we kind of go through and make some more of these sounds. So let's test some of these guys out, see what they sound like with our drum beat. All these are kind of annoying. I feel like they didn't sound that annoying when I made them originally. But you know, that's how it goes. So I think this has some potential, but let's go down an octave with it. I don't know, maybe not. There we go. That works okay for me. Let's put on Complex Pro. We're gonna be doing a lot of different kind of like pitchy things. Complex Pro is worth checking out. Okay, I feel like we can work with this. Let's go one more octave up just in case. No, too much. Sweet, so that sounds cool to me, but rhythmically it's not really giving me a whole lot. It's just doing like straight, what are these, like eighth notes. Not as into it. So there's a lot of options we have for playing with rhythm. We could do some like beat repeat, which could be kind of cool. In fact, we'll try that first. But really what I'm thinking here is probably some delays is going to be the way I'm going to deal with this to make this sound cool. But I haven't used beat repeat for a long time, so I'm going to try testing this out and seeing where that gets us. One of the cool things about beat repeat is you put it on the auto mode, and that means that every time it repeats, it's going to randomly pick a new speed automatically. So we're going to turn up the randomization a little bit, and we're going to set our amount to be eighth notes and our gate to be like 3/8 notes. I don't mind that. I think that just sounds pretty cool. Let's do a little bit more randomization. Yeah, I totally don't mind that. I think that actually works pretty well. And then let's put a little delay on it. So normally I'd use echo, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll use a little bit of delay. Cool, yeah, that's dope. I'm digging it. And maybe a little bit of reverb as well. I'm going to keep an eye on my CPU just in case OBS decides to freak out. But cool. So this is another thing I think is important to mention about kind of like sample flipping or remixing and like working with pre-made content that you kind of like have to use is tweaking things until, and like morphing them and changing them until they become something you're like really into. And then all of a sudden, like that's what the song becomes about. And you can kind of like pivot from just like, okay, I'm just dealing with these loops into, okay, this is a cool thing that I would actually use. And this is not part of the source material. I mean, it technically is part of the source material, but it's now something totally different. So this is the kind of thing that I'm looking for when I'm doing like a sample flip or a remix or something like that is like this to me is way more interesting than this, but it's close enough that it allows me to like feel like, okay, this feels inspiring. This feels like, okay, this is going to inspire me to make other things, and then we can check to see if this like works with our bass line that we were working with earlier. It works okay, but maybe I don't want to do, like now that I have some context for like the world that this sound or these songs are going to live in, this is, maybe I don't need the distortion here. Cool. So again, we're starting to like build ourselves a sense of place, give ourselves a like sense of almost kind of like world building or atmosphere to what we're doing here, just by kind of like doing things one at a time. And then again, I'm gonna put a hold on this, probably come back, process it more. I'm gonna resample it to audio, chop it up even more, add some more effects to it, really kind of turn it into something else. But yeah, source material, I think can really small amounts of source material can go a really long way. For example, let's try, before we get over to the next track, the other really fun way to kind of like take source material is, so say I like this, but I don't want to do what I did with my bass line. I don't want to just kind of like take that note and replay it. We can actually just turn this into an oscillator. So let's go ahead and toss this one in our simpler. So look at this here. So we still have this here, but now we also have it in a simpler. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn loop on, and we're going to loop just the tiniest, most insignificant part of this. And instead of using it like a sampler, we're basically just going to be using it like a synthesizer. Like that. And if we change the length of our sample, we can just turn it into an oscillator. So you can literally turn anything into a synthesizer if you want to. If anybody's out there, how's my mic volume doing? It's a little hard to tell from over here, but I just want to make sure that my mic volume versus my live volume is roughly doing okay. So we can turn this into an oscillator. We can also just kind of like pitch it up and down from where it's at. On top of that, because this is an oscillator, we need to figure out what pitch we're playing here, and we actually need to kind of like tune our oscillator. So if I grab tuner, I need to make sure that when I'm playing this note, it's actually playing an F sharp, which can be done either by changing the length as we did before, and or let's make this something like this. We can also pitch it up and down using our pitch controls. And we'll go down a couple cents. So now we have a synthesizer that is based off of the root source material that we were given, again, whether it's remixes or samples or whatever you're working with. And now we can play it like a synthesizer, and we can also tweak it and kind of like play around with it like we could a synthesizer. So all right, I should be back now. All right, I've gotten really good at noticing when my mic dies and fixing it, but I still don't know what's causing that. Just like really random CPU spikes will just destroy my microphone. Yeah, so now we can tweak this and play it like we could any synthesizer. So let's make this, for example, monophonic, and let's do some filter stuff with it. Maybe do a little like LFO this time. And let that. Make sure this is still working. Now let's put a little glide on here. So we can start playing with that and see if we can like fit that into kind of the world we're building with the sounds we have. LFO is a little too fast for my liking. Cool, I'm digging that. I'm not quite sure what that was, but I like it. Hit the capture button. Take this note, move it over here. Play with the glide time a little bit, see what happens if I turn this up. A little too much, but I like maybe like, I don't know, 75. Let's use some of our analog modeling in our filter to like see what happens. Cool. Let's get some like old school kind of like weird dubstep wobbles going on. Normally I wait till later on in the process to do this, but I think it works for this kind of thing. So let's go to our automation, and I think this one should be slower. Oh, wrong way. And this one should go down to 8th notes, or 12th notes. Let's try the other direction too, just in case. And this one goes down. And let's make our lives easier just by changing our grid size. And then using our pencil tool. Not sure. Where this one should go. And I think this one should maybe be slower as well. Turn this follow off, that's kind of annoying. Cool. It's not, you know, amazing, but I'm kind of digging it. Let's put a little redux on there. I don't know, it could be kind of cool. And then let's go ahead and, just because I'm kind of just like doing a bunch of like processing in different kinds of ways, let's go ahead and take this guy and then freeze it and flatten it, because I think with some audio, there could be some potential in here. So now we have the audio version of the same thing. So let's try pitching it down here, because I think this could be kind of interesting. I actually kind of like that quite a bit. Let's try it on Complex Pro. And also, just to see what it sounds like, chop it up on Beats mode. Cool. So I actually really like the combination of the pitch glide as we're going from one note to another on this guy. I think that actually works really well. I think there's a lot of potential there, and that's probably something I'll continue to explore as I kind of develop these ideas a little bit more, because I think this is cool. With the pitch bend or not pitch bend, I mean kind of pitch bend, but the glide and the wobbles kind of together, I think creates some like interesting combinations that I think are worth exploring, and that's probably what I'll end up doing for my bass line. So instead of using I might use some of the bass lines that were given in the sample pack, but I'm most likely just going to ignore those and take this one sound I had from my melody, turn it into a synthesizer, and then turn that into a bass line, and that gives a lot of interesting creative potential while still staying within the confines of, just making a song using 100% these samples. So I think there's a lot of things, a lot of interesting potential there. Let me tone down the wobble and just see what happens if I just get rid of that for the most part. That's okay. That's like not quite as cool. We can also turn the Redux off for this. I'm just turn the whole filter off. What if we do a bandpass filter? That could be kind of cool. I think there's some interesting options there. But I wanted to explore I think the glide to me is sounding more interesting than the wobble. I could actually work the drum beat, I think. What was I doing before? I feel like it's a different rhythm. feel like there's some interesting things you can do there. Maybe just something like that could work. Cool. So yeah, these are just some of the ideas, things you can do to kind of explore the space a little bit of like working in the confines of like a sample pack kind of situation. Let's find some other stuff to explore that we haven't played around with yet. Right now, I'm just kind of like feeling things out, seeing what I think sounds cool. I've not checked out these sounds yet. Let's see what these sounds like. All right, should be back up and running. Testing. All right, well, I apologize about all of the disconnects today. I think the more stuff I have going on inside of Live, the more likely it is that my mic struggles. So I'm gonna have to keep it chill, maybe get rid of some things, but that's pretty cool. I think there's some interesting things we can do here. So for example, if we have an atmospheric thing like this, I don't think this actually loops nicely. Actually, it loops pretty okay. But we're gonna take the first two bars here. And it's already kind of washed out and kind of atmospheric, but let's make it even more washed out and even more atmospheric. And that's a great way to kind of like convert one kind of sound into a different kind of sound. Although in this case, it's just going to be more of kind of the same. So we're going to use hybrid reverb, and we're going to like crank the settings to get some like very atmospheric things going on. So let's try, I haven't used Tides of Prism recently, so. All right, we're already running into mic issues again. All right. Once again, mic sounds okay. All right. So having a lot of mic issues, so we might need to pull back here a little bit and really limit ourselves in terms of what we can do in terms of effects and processing. It does seem like the more audio effects I'm using, that's really causing a lot of the mic issues. So I apologize about that, but that's just the technology world that I'm living in right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and save what I got going on here. Didn't make that much progress yet on it, but I'm just kind of exploring some ideas and kind of seeing what we can do with some of these ideas. I think some of them are definitely not going to make it into the final version, the final product, but I think there's some stuff in here that's worth playing around with. But I think if you are going to be trying the sample pack challenge, that is going to be due at the end of the month on June 25th during one of the song feedback streams, where we're going to take a look at all of the sample packs and see what people came up with and just talk about them. But try taking samples, putting them inside Simpler, and then playing like an instrument. Try taking samples and putting them in a Simpler and playing it like a synthesizer. Try resampling things, using different effects, turning things to audio. There's lots of different ways to process these samples that are worth taking a look into. And I believe in the next couple week or so, maybe, I'm gonna make some videos for the channel just talking about sample flipping and some of the options you have at your disposal. So let me go ahead and make something new, and let's see if that helps our CPU at all, and prevents some of those mic issues that I've been kind of dealing with all stream. Cool. So since we were talking about doing some sample stuff, let's talk about doing some synthesis, I guess. Of course, if anybody is out there and has any questions or topics that they would like to talk about, or just things that they want to ask questions about, go ahead and toss it in the chat. These Tuesday streams are mostly kind of designed for people just to pop by, ask questions. Can you treat it kind of like office hours? And that is kind of the idea. So let's talk a little bit about analog, because I have not talked about analog on stream or in any videos, I don't think ever. That is very loud. Cool. So generally, I don't super recommend the use of analog. I think it's a decent synthesizer. I think it can get the job done. I think it does a specific thing pretty well. However, for most synthesis and sound design, what you're looking for can probably be done better and more efficiently and with more variety with either operator or wavetable. Those are like my two go-to synthesizers pretty much all the time. Analog doesn't end up making it into that a whole lot. However, there are a few things that analog, like I said, I think does pretty well, and I think it's worth checking out. So it's called analog because it's kind of built and designed to emulate an old school analog synthesizer. So if you're looking to get like that old school synthesizer sound, that's one of the things it's actually pretty good at. And the feature set is a little bit limited. Like you only have your two regular oscillators, and you have a third noise oscillator. The noise oscillator here is actually excellent. I really like it because it built-in color control. So as you play different noise, it acts kind of like a filter. So you can do filter sweeps, and you can kind of like have things kind of moving up and down just by automating this. And that's a good way to do filter sweeps, and it works pretty well. But the actual oscillators themselves are fairly straightforward. You're only really going to be getting a couple waveforms. By couple, I just mean sine wave, saw wave, square wave, and random, which is also just a noise oscillator. So you could have 3 separate noise oscillators all simultaneously if you really like noise. But that's pretty much all you're going to get. The one cool thing you kind of need to be aware of when it comes to using these, if you are going to be using the square oscillator, you get a pulse width control. And this actually greatly affects how it sounds. So it's going to change the width of your square waves. So let me turn this down a little bit so it's not super annoying. But if I change this, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 100% width is actually this square wave. And just to double check to make sure I'm not lying to you guys, we're going to use this oscilloscope here. Yeah, so that way we can see our waveform. The 100% width is the actual square wave. Where at 0%, you can see we just have like a little tiny blip. And at 50%, which is where it defaults, it's not actually like a square wave. It's like more of like a rectangle wave. So watch out for that. If you're going for like that actual classic square wave sound, 100% is where that's going to be. And this only applies if you're going to be using the square oscillator, not if you're using sine wave, saw wave, or noise. It doesn't do anything. The other kind of thing that's interesting about analog is the pitch envelope is kind of basic. Instead of getting a full ADSR curve and all the like cool stuff you can do with pitch envelopes in almost every other device in live, you only have an initial amount and a time, and that's it. And there's a representative over here. So if you want something to start high, do little laser sounds. Boom, there you go, done. And then if you want to change the amount of time it takes, give it a little punch at the beginning, or for a really long one. Then that's all it really does. Or you can go the other direction and you can have like planes taking off. Or you can, a little Mario jumping if you make it short. So Mario sounds, there you go. Pitch envelopes are great. If you're not like familiar with pitch envelopes and how they work, maybe I should make a video on those. That'd be a good topic. There's just a lot of things you can do with pitch envelopes that are very, very easy, that are worth looking into. But the one here, pretty basic. That's all there really is to it. Other things that are kind of cool, there is like an extra sub oscillator in here. This can just as another oscillator, an octave lower. Beefs up your sound quite a bit. So if you're noticing your sound in analog is sounding a little thin, this is a great way to kind of like beef it up. There's also the sync oscillator, which I think doesn't really sound as good. Gets you that like weird ringing kind of sound. But sub oscillator can be really, really useful. Other than that, pretty basic pitch controls. Filter, super, super straightforward. One of my all-time most confusing things about working in Operator is the way you modulate things. The amount you modulate things varies a little bit depending on which parameter you're talking about. So for example, the envelope goes up to 16. I'm not sure what 16 means. It's not like a percentage or anything, whereas the keyboard tracking goes up to 4. And the LFO also goes to 4. So I have no idea what these numbers mean. They are the amount, but for some reason 4 is the max on these two, and 16 is the max on these two. They also go -16, -4. So I'm not sure why that is. If anybody knows, let me know, because that is one of the mysteries of life. But you have your basic, envelope controls, all that kind of stuff. It's laid out in not my favorite way. If you're used to like, mapping things with like wavetable, this is a bit, it's not more complicated. It's just not laid out in quite as efficient or effective of a way. So if you want to apply this filter or this envelope to your filter, turn a filter down and then turn the envelope up. And that's how you're going to apply it. Like that. And again, 16 is the max here. So pretty basic envelope controls, keyboard tracking. LFO doesn't do anything yet because we haven't turned the LFO on. But the cool thing about analog, and I mentioned this in a video I made a while back on the channel that you may or may not have seen. If you have not seen it, the secret weapon inside analog is the formant filters. this is one of only a couple places in all of Live as a software that has built-in format filters. The other one being tension and a little bit technically with the vocoder. So if you want to get those vowel sounds that like A, E, I, O, U, this is the place to do it. So the way this works is if you turn the format on, the filter frequency will obviously go up and down and get you some like interesting kind of like valley sounds, but the resonance actually controls the vowel sound. This is what switches between A, E, I, O, and U. And it tends to work really well if you play it on a really low frequency. Which is pretty sweet. So what this means is that generally I don't recommend applying an envelope to your resonance. But in this situation, if we apply an envelope to the resonance, you get this weird vocally vowely. And if you like really spend some time with it, you can get some like pretty crazy kind of sounds that way. Really easy. And this is really one of the things that analog shines at that almost nothing else in Live does, because there's just straight up not access to format filters. That's kind of the filter section, or at least the most exciting things in the filter section. We have our volume envelope here, nothing like too monumental. Basic ADR stuff, panning controls, volume controls. And then we have our LFO. The LFO here is actually pretty nice. We have our different waveforms. We have like triangle waveforms, and you can like shift the triangle waveform to get either reverse saw or saw waves, because saw wave is not an option here. You have noise that is just going to be like a sample and hold versus a smooth noise. So like two different kinds of noise LFOs, which is cool. And then you have rate over here, either synced or non-synced. The downside of this LFO is that it can only be applied to 6 different places. It can either be mapped to the volume, the panning, the resonance of your filter, the filter frequency, the pulse width, only if you're using a square wave, and the pitch. And LFO1 can only be applied to amp 1, filter 1, and oscillator 1. And those are the only 6 places that it can apply. Whereas LFO2 does the same thing. It can only be applied to those 6 parameters on amp 2, filter 2, and oscillator 2. So these days with modern synthesizer design, we're kind of spoiled for choice and options when it comes to like where you're mapping things, and like LFOs just everywhere. Whereas in analog, you're kind of limited to just those 6 locations. And those are like, 6 pretty important, pretty commonly used locations, but it's not everything like on Wavetable. So you're a little limited. And again, this is just a design choice they made to make it behave more like a really old school analog synthesizer, because that's the only options they had. It's got some vibrato in here. I actually think the vibrato works really well. So we're going for that like Zelda soundtrack kind of thing. It's like nice and subtle, works pretty well. You can obviously go like way over the top with it if you want, but the vibrato settings are pretty nice. The unison works great. Actually, I think unison sounds pretty solid. Glide works great, and then you have a bunch of like global settings in here. The only other kind of thing you really need to be aware of when it comes to working with analog is the routing controls here. So kind of similar to the way the operator works, but not quite as cool. You can see by the little lines how they connect together. So we have the oscillators, the 2 filters, and the 2 amplitude envelopes, or amplitude sections. So if I click on this, that means oscillator 1 goes to filter 1, amp 1, and then out. And then oscillator 2 goes to filter 2, amp 2, and out. But if I click on this one, you can see there is a routing right here, here, and here. This routes which filter each one of your oscillators go to. So right now, oscillator 1 is going to filter 1, oscillator 2 is going to filter 2. If I click on this one, they both just get set to 50-50. So both oscillators are going to both filters. If I click on this one, both of them go into filter 1, and then filter 1 goes to amp 1, and then out. And then here, both of them go to filter 1, and then filter 2, and then amp 2, and then out. And none of this stuff are things that is like happening behind the scenes. They're all just kind of like, it's just changing these controls for you. So, but it's like a cool little quick way to switch between different routings if you are going to be using something like analog. But that's basically it. There's like not a whole lot of like hidden features or like crazy bells and whistles on this in the same way they are with operator and wavetable. But if you're looking again to like create a nice kind of like old school kind of sound design, if you want to go for that kind of like 60s, 70s style synthesizer sound, or as you kind of heard in some of these examples, like video game kind of sound design, like 8-bit video game sound design, this actually works great because it has all the exact same features that a synthesizer that was around in those times had. And so you're kind of like using the same kind of techniques and routings and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, not my favorite synthesizer, but it has its uses. And I think sometimes if you're just like, I just need a real thick and beefy sounding saw wave bass line, this can work great. But if you're looking for like lots of modulation and different kinds of sounds out of this, probably not my first choice. If anybody's out there has any questions either about analog or otherwise, just in general, about music production with Ableton Live, feel free to toss those in the chat and let me know. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else super revolutionary about analog. But I like it. It's a cool synth. I guess I will play around with it for a little bit. Let's turn up the unison. Turn up the sub oscillator. That's too low. Let's go up an octave. Turn on the glide a little bit. Short monophonic. We need more time on the glide. You can make cool sounds like that pretty easily. A little notch filter on this. Let's put a little LFO on the filter frequency here. Turn LFO turned on. Let's go back to a sine wave. Let's also put a little LFO on the pulse width. This is actually one of my favorite things to do when it comes to working with analog. LFO on the pulse width. Get some like cool, interesting motion there. Let's turn this off for a second. You can see the waveform kind of changing around a bunch. A little bit less time on the glide. So if you're going for that kind of like big, kind of thick square wave kind of sound. You can make some cool sound design with this. Is it Marcon? Or just Marcon. So there's no like fully dedicated additive synthesis. However, if you are using operator, you can basically do additive synthesis. Let me give this a second to load. Macaron. It's like my chat's so small, sometimes it's hard to read the names. Welcome to the stream. So if you're using operator, right now it's just playing a sine wave, and right in this area here, each one of these is a harmonic. So if you want to add in your own harmonic, and that's basically how you do additive synthesis. So you can do additive synthesis built in here. Honestly, this is kind of a pain though. Like you have to it's a lot of work just to get anything that sounds decently cool. But it can work really well, especially with those kind of bell sounds or organ sounds. Works great. And you can see as soon as you start adding in your own harmonics, the waveform switches to user. And so if you want to go back to a square wave, you can start with a square wave and then start tweaking the harmonics on a square wave. And if you want, you can switch it down to 16 harmonics. And I think it just repeats them. Like that. And then if you want, you could also FM them and have different additive oscillators being FM synthesized into each other. But yeah, that's how you do additive in Live if you wanted to. I'm sure there's also some Maxwell Live devices that will also do it, but this is nice because it's all right here. Do you do a lot of additive synthesis, or is that just something you're interested in checking out? Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's fun just to go in here and just draw in a bunch of stuff. Kind of see what comes up with it. You can also right click in here and you can get all the draw them in only on evens or odds, which is kind of cool. You can switch to evens. Yeah, I don't end up doing a lot of additive, but I have a lot of respect for people who are super into that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a great question. People normally don't even ask about that. Getting a weird ringing sound. Let's switch it. Let's go to the sine wave. Easy way to make a riser. There's tons of ways to do it. The best way would be just to get a noise oscillator. So if we're already here an operator, just do a white noise oscillator. There are 2 noise oscillators in here. White noise is probably what I'd recommend. Yeah, I'm assuming you just mean a noise riser, not just because there could be different kinds of risers, but we'll do noise first, and then if that's not what you're looking for, we can do something else. But white noise just sounds like white noise. And you can take a low pass filter like this, turn it all the way down, and then automate it up over time. Like that. So easy way to do it, just plug in a note. The thing about white noise is that it doesn't matter what note you play. You can play any MIDI note, it's going to sound exactly the same. And you just go into your automation, go to your filter frequency, start it low, move it up high. So there you are. And that can be done in literally almost any synthesizer. And then after that, you can start tossing effects on it if you want to put distortion on it. The resonators sound really cool on it. You put the Moscow resonator on it. So if you want to do a tonal riser, you could basically take any sound and have the pitch increase. So let's go ahead and delete this mapping. And yeah, you could do it on either one of these, the coarse frequency or the fine tuning. The fine tuning is going to sound a little smoother, whereas this is going to jump and get very high pitched very fast. You can hear it jumps from one value to the next, whereas the fine tuning is going to be smoother. If you are going to do a pitch rising kind of thing, then I probably wouldn't use operator. I'd probably just use almost any other synthesizer, like Wavetable, for example. And an easy way to do this is just plug in your note. So it'll just sound like this. Oops, that is very loud. Apologize. And then take this, and you don't even do anything. Just go into the MIDI control automation. There's a built-in pitch bend right here. And then turn this up all the way. And then go into your MIDI matrix and change the range of your pitch bend to be how far you want to go with it. So you can automate the pitch like that. That's one way to do it, and that way you can like have the timing be as whatever you want. You could have it like go up and down over time, which is pretty cool. Another way to do it would be to, instead of automating the pitch here, use a pitch envelope. So inside of Wavetable, you have like your volume envelope, and you have envelope 2 and 3 here. These are just extra envelopes, and they can be mapped to whatever you want, including pitch. So we could take this, give it a bunch of attack, go to the matrix, apply envelope 2 to the pitch. Like it's very high. Let's pitch this down so it starts slower. Something like that. So it changes over time. And right now it's a sine wave, but you can use whatever waveform you want. This is still very high pitch. Let's pitch this down even more. Like that. You can also have it go the opposite direction, have it go down. So yeah, so just automating pitch over time is also can like create those kind of like rising tension things. And sometimes people will layer both. They'll have like the white noise with the filter moving up, and at the same time they'll have, you know, one of these waveforms with the pitch also going up at the same time. Let's actually try this and see what happens. So if that's happening at the same time as I deleted the automation. White noise, go to our filter. Have that move up over time. And you have like multiple things moving in the same direction at the same time to help kind of like build that tension in your transitions. Yeah, white noise plus a filter, low pass filter, moving up over time is like the most easy generic way to make a riser or like transition kind of sound. And then you just like slap on any effects that you want afterwards and like get really creative with it. Let's put a phaser on there, and let's put some distortion on there. Actually sounds dope. I really like that. Hey, Ray. So I do a Tuesday, I stream on Tuesday and Fridays, and Tuesdays are just kind of like hang out, talk about music production. So either I'm just hanging out, working on stuff, making weird noises, and people come in and ask me questions about either what I'm working on or just whatever they want to talk about when it comes to making music. You know, mostly with Ableton Live, but any music related discussion is super welcome. And then I also do a Friday feedback stream where people send me their tracks, and I'll take a listen to them on Fridays and give them feedback. But Macaron After Party was asking about risers and how to make transition sounds. Favorite stock Ableton plugin? Are we talking about effects or instruments? So if we're going to be doing like each category, MIDI effects, the arpeggiator by far. Like arpeggiator is just amazing. I use it all the time. Super great. As far as instruments, I think traditionally operator. I think operator has been my favorite for the longest period of time. However, I think Wavetable is like a very close second and may even surpass it. So operator with like honorable mention on for Wavetable. Although I also really love drum racks. Drum racks are also like really important to me. And then for audio effects, there's a lot of them that I really love. I think that Saturator is probably one of them. That's just like a go-to, like makes everything sound better. And then after that, probably either Echo or, yeah, probably Echo is my second favorite. And then for Max for live devices, there's a lot of them. But I made a video about this recently. Shaper is probably my favorite Max for live device, which is basically just an LFO on anything that you want. So you can just map that to anything, and then you can change the shape, be whatever you want. So those are probably some of my favorite devices, but that might change depending on how I feel in a particular day. I do like hybrid reverb a lot, but that's a new one, so I haven't like figured out everything about it yet. But I feel like that has a lot of potential. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm actually not the biggest fan of the multiband dynamics. I know OTT is super useful, and I definitely use specifically that preset in certain situations. But I just like the interface of the multiband is just like, it's so ugly and it's such a pain to use versus like a regular compressor. So if you exclude OTT, I'm like not a big fan of multiband dynamics. But if you include it, then I think it's all right. So you can tweak the pattern on the arpeggiator, but not as much as you can on a lot of other arpeggiators. So you grab the arpeggiator here. So if I just play a couple notes, what did I do? The pitch envelope. Why is this so low? Okay. So if I like play 3 notes, it's just going to alternate between the 3 notes, going from lowest, middle to highest. But if you change the style here, it's going to change the order in which it plays them. So if I play down, it's going to play highest, middle, lowest. Or you can change it to be like all kinds of like different crazy patterns. And there's visual depictions of these in the live manual if you want to check that out. But especially if you play lots of notes. Or if you add in the steps, this will add in extra notes as well, an octave higher. And let's speed this up a little bit. So I'm just playing 4 notes at once. And it's like just generating a bunch of extra notes because I have my steps turned on, and it's alternating between them in the converge pattern. So you can do some like cool stuff with your patterns, but you can't like fully customize the patterns on your on it like you can with some arpeggiators. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. Let's add another one here. Try some different patterns. So I'm just playing 3 notes, and that's what it's given me. Let's get a little pluckier envelope kind of situation going on. So yeah, so a little bit of customization, but not like a whole lot. I think oftentimes when I'm using OTT, Macaroon, part of what I want is some of that like background noise. Like I'm using it on already really distorted sounds to bring out a lot of the artifacts and distortion and like weirdness that's happening in there. So I think that like the like background noise is sometimes just part of the game. So yeah, so in this situation, based off of the settings that I have, it's not random, but it's just jumping back and forth between a lot of different things. So you can make these kind of like complex arpeggiations that way. However, if you wanted to, you can record the MIDI coming out of the arpeggiator. So if you did set this to be something like random, something like that, where it's like it's just continually playing random notes, you could record that MIDI on another track and then just loop the part that you like. And I've talked about this on stream before, but this is really, really useful. So if I make a new empty MIDI track over here, and on my MIDI from, if I grab MIDI from my wavetable track, which is the one in the arpeggiator, I can grab post effects here. If I record enable this, and I hit record right here, let's stop that. That's playing a bunch of notes here. That's why. But yeah, so it's taking a bunch of random notes, and these are all different kind of like variations on arpeggiations. But eventually you'll get something cool that you like, and then when you hit record, or when you record it, so like say bar 3, I really like this random arpeggiation, I can then loop that, and then boom, there's my arpeggiation, and put it back on this track, and then turn off the arpeggiator. Like that. So yeah, so generating different kinds of patterns and then just recording them allows you to repeat whichever versions you like. Like, so when you randomize things like that, a lot of times it's going to be garbage, but every once in a while it'll make that really nice combination of sounds that you really like, and then like, cool, there it is. So for example, with this kind of thing, say I don't like, this note, I could just edit that out of there, or I can move this around over here. And so you can still kind of edit it to, if there's like one imperfect note, you could dial it in and tweak it and kind of make it perfect for what it is you're trying to do. But recording MIDI out of the arpeggiator is a fantastic thing to do. And that's something I do quite a bit. Sweet. Anybody else got any questions or topics or things they want to talk about? I never put OTT on a master track, and I can imagine there are probably people that do and can get away with it, and there are definitely probably a lot of people who do and do not get away with it in terms of like it messing up their audio quality. I don't put anything on my master until it's actually time to master, in which case I'll just do, kind of fairly standard mastering chain, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of like stereo widening, and then limiting. And usually OTT is not part of that chain. In fact, it pretty much never is part of that chain. The thing about mastering, and it depends a lot on like the style of music you're making. If you're making like really heavy, if you're like putting on while you're mixing, probably not the best thing to do. If you're making like really heavy, over the top, in your face dubstep, you can get away with breaking a lot of rules that you couldn't in like, pop music or rock music, or, a lot, even other styles of electronic music. So I won't necessarily say somebody is wrong for putting OTT on their master, but I personally would not do that. I think a lot of people rely on OTT as a crutch, and partially because they don't understand exactly how it works. But I think that it kind of fools you into thinking a lot of the things you're making sound better than they actually do. Yeah, I'm all in favor of breaking rules. I think there's a lot of people in especially the mixing and mastering world who are like very traditionalist that are like, this is the way we've done it for the last 40, 50, 60 years. And there's like history behind this, and there's reasons why we have all these exact settings, and we don't want to like, we respect the lineage of the styles of mixing and mastering that we were doing. And then there's a lot of people out there who are just like, I'm gonna clip my master by 16 dB and I'm not gonna worry about it. And those people make, hit records sometimes. So break the rules, but also, break the rules with intention. Don't break the rules because you don't know the rules. But yeah, I think that's, yeah, I've heard a lot of tracks where I've like, people have not known what they're doing, but they still sound great. And a lot of people who know exactly what they're doing and it sounds terrible. But I think it's helpful to kind of like be honest with yourself about what you're doing to your sound and try to understand like the nature of volume and dynamics and like what that actually means. It's really complex, and it really takes like a lot of time to wrap your head around like what a compressor is actually doing to your sound and when to use it, like when's a good place to overdo it and when's a good place to not overdo it. Like knowing to choose your battles with compressors, I think is a skill set that takes a long time to figure out. And like you can have a really overcompressed sound and have it really work, and then, but you can also overdo it and just ruin your whole song. But yeah, that's the nature of OTT and how people use it. I think is fascinating to me. Um, and some people, like I have students all the time who surprise me in their application of OTT. Sweet. Well, I appreciate both of you guys popping by for the stream. I usually end around now-ish, but I'm definitely gonna stick around for a little bit if you guys have any more questions or anything else you want to be talking about. But I do stream, like I said, Tuesdays, 5 to 7 Mountain Time. I guess that would be 7 to 9 East Coast time. And then Fridays, I do the song feedback streams. So if you guys want to come check out that kind of I keep losing my train of thought. If you want to come check out the song feedback stream on Fridays, that usually happens, but this Friday I'll actually be out of town, so that won't be happening. So I have an interesting relationship with LUFS, at least in terms of how I use it when I'm mastering. I actually make, when I'm releasing something, I'll make two versions of my master. One's the version for myself for when I'm performing live and DJing and that kind of thing, where I don't care about LUFS basically. And then the other version is the one that goes to the distributor to go on Spotify and all that stuff. I've been doing a lot of research into it recently and talking to people who are like professionals who are releasing stuff. And there's a really interesting video on YouTube I saw recently where somebody, if you go into Spotify, you can turn off the Spotify compression that they do. And so you can listen to something with the actual master dynamics that was sent to Spotify. And so somebody was doing this and analyzing that, and it looks like a lot of people who are like, big names in industry releasing, super big records, they don't care about LUFS. They're just like, they're not even mastering with LUFS in mind, which to me is interesting because some people think it's super, super important to like hit that -14 LUFS for Spotify or whatever. And some people are just like, I don't care. I'm going to master it till it sounds good. I'm going to send it to Spotify, and whatever Spotify does to it, I don't really care. So I think it's good to at least keep LUFS in mind and be thinking about what kind of levels you want it to be at, and it seems like people can get away with like -8, -9 LUFS on Spotify, and Spotify, they turn it down to -14, but it still sounds totally fine. So uh, I don't feel like I have a solid opinion about it right now. I used to be really mindful of it and just, okay, when I'm mastering, anything that's going to Spotify, -14, be real strict about it. And now I'm like, maybe we don't need to worry about it that much. But I think there's a lot to learn there, and I think it's interesting because you can definitely go above -14 and they'll just turn it back down to -14. And that might not really affect the dynamics or the audio quality really that much. But if you want to test it out, you can turn on Spotify and you can listen to the non-compressed version or the compressed version if you want. Yeah, man. Both you guys are welcome here anytime. Normally it's a little busier here today. I'm not really sure why it's like such a slow day today. Sometimes there's a bunch of people in here. Sometimes it's like super chill like today. But I'll be around, and then if you want to check out my channel, I release videos every Monday and Thursday about different random topics that I think are interesting in terms of music production stuff. Cool. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I do want to do like a LUFS research stream sometime and just kind of like go through all the info I can find about LUFS and see if I can get a solid answer on it, because I used to feel like I had solid answers, and now I feel like I, you know, I'm skeptical about all the information that's out there. Yeah, so Macaroon, I do private lessons through my website, catalyzeacademy.com. You can sign up for lessons there if you want. If you're curious about it, you can also book like a free consultation thing, and we can kind of talk about it. But I do stuff through Zoom, and I'm finally starting to do in-person lessons again, which I'm really stoked about. I had my first in-person lesson earlier today, actually. So I'm thrilled about that, because teaching in person is way more fun than teaching online, although now I've gotten really used to teaching online too. I also sometimes do like workshops and things like that as well, and usually those are free. Cool, guys. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. I am not going to be streaming this Friday, but I will be back on Tuesday. I might stream tomorrow randomly. I might, if I just feel like it, pop on and do a little stream to make up for the fact that I'm not streaming on Friday. So if maybe I'll do like a little song feedback stream tomorrow, surprise song feedback stream. Sweet. Well, thanks for popping by and having some really awesome questions and chatting with me. And that's going to be it for tonight. Have a good one. And also, all my streams are also on the channel. So if you want to watch the recording later on, you are more than welcome to do that. Have a good evening.